Rescuer saves horse stuck in the mud. He calls for backup when he sees what's hiding under the horse. The scene opens up on a gray, drizzly morning. A soft but urgent neigh echoes through a dense forest. The camera zooms in on the murky, damp ground where a lone horse is partially submerged in thick mud. Its head barely held high. Its eyes are wide with fear. Its body shivering from cold and exhaustion. Nearby, footsteps approach. The mud squelches as Jack, a rugged rescue worker in a bright red uniform, steps carefully toward the trapped horse. His face is tense but determined. This is a man who has seen his fair share of tough rescues. Jack stops a few feet from the horse, assessing the situation. The animal is stuck tight, with mud clinging heavily to its legs, pinning it in place. He kneels down slowly, reaching out a hand, his voice low and soothing as he talks to the frightened creature. He can feel her trembling, and he knows she's exhausted, close to giving up. He's rescued plenty of animals in his time, but something about this horse tugs at him. There's a desperation in her eyes, like she's begging him to save her. He carefully places his hand on her neck, feeling the rough texture of her muddy coat under his fingers. She doesn't flinch, and he takes it as a good sign, gently patting her, hoping to earn her trust. "Easy, girl," he murmurs softly. The words meant as much to calm himself as they are to reassure her. He knows that one wrong move could spook her, making her struggle even harder and sink deeper into the mud. He needs her to stay calm. Welcome back to PlotTwister. Before we unravel today's mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you're always in the loop. He glances around, taking in the bleak surroundings. The trees loom tall and thick, casting dark shadows that add an eerie stillness to the scene. The ground around the house is a mess of mud, roots, and water, creating a thick, treacherous trap. Jack knows it'll be a challenge to get her out of this alone, but he's not the type to give up. With steady hands, he adjusts his equipment, his mind racing with thoughts of how he'll need to handle this. As he tightens his grip, Jack feels a surge of determination. This horse isn't just another rescue. She's a living, breathing soul that needs him right now, and he's ready to give everything he's got. Jack takes a deep breath, steadying his nerves as he kneels beside the horse. Daisy, her brown eyes wide and filled with fear. He reaches out, gently patting her neck, feeling her flinch beneath his hand. She's exhausted, her body weighed down by the thick mud clinging to her legs and belly, holding her in place like a vice. He speaks to her softly, hoping his calm voice will help to ease her fear. She blinks, eyes flicking toward him, a small but hopeful response that tells him she's listening. With Daisy's trust building, Jack carefully loops a sturdy rope around her front legs, testing the tension with a firm tug. Daisy stirs, lifting her head slightly as she feels the pull, a glimmer of hope crossing her face. Jack tightens his grip and pulls again, his muscles straining as he tries to ease her forward. The mud resists, sucking against Daisy's legs, holding her down. Jack's heart pounds as he watches her struggle, her legs barely shifting, the mud swallowing each attempt she makes to move. He pauses, scanning the ground around her, noticing the tangled mess of roots and rocks underneath the thick mud. Each movement could be risky. One wrong pull might injure her. He adjusts his stance and pulls with renewed effort, coaxing Daisy gently to try again. She lets out a soft, trembling snort, her hooves slipping as she tries to push herself forward. But the mud grips tighter, refusing to release its hold. Sweat beads on Jack's forehead, his breath heavy as he crouches beside her, patting her neck once more. He whispers words of encouragement, trying to hide his own frustration. Daisy, sensing his determination, looks at him with eyes that are both pleading and trusting. But when he tries once more to pull her free, she resists, trembling and refusing to budge. It's as if something deeper, something unseen is holding her back. Jack steps back, his chest heaving, watching Daisy sink a little further as the mud inches up her legs. The weight of the task settles over him as he realizes this won't be a quick or easy rescue. Daisy is trapped, and if he's going to help her, he'll need more than just strength and determination. Jack pulls out his radio, his voice steady but tense as he calls for backup. He explains the situation quickly, his words clipped with urgency. Moments later, he hears the crackle of a response. Tom, his longtime friend and colleague, is on his way bringing extra equipment. Jack feels a weight lift from his shoulders, He knows he'll need every bit of help he can get to free Daisy from this muddy prison. As he waits, Jack stays by Daisy's side, patting her neck and murmuring softly to keep her calm. He glances around, noting how isolated they are. The trees stretch tall and dense around them, creating an almost oppressive silence, broken only by Daisy's labored breathing and the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. Jack feels a chill run down his spine. The longer he stands there, the more he realizes just how precarious the situation is. After what feels like an eternity, Jack hears footsteps squelching through the mud. Tom appears, his face grim as he takes in the sight of Daisy, trapped up to her belly in the thick, clinging mud. He nods at Jack, his expression a mix of determination and concern. Without a word, they exchange a quick glance of understanding. They've been through plenty of tough rescues together, and both know this is one that is different. Something about it feels heavier, more urgent. Tom sets down the equipment he's brought, and the two men work together in silence, setting up ropes and adjusting their positions carefully around Daisy. She watches them with those wide, frightened eyes, her ears flicking back and forth, sensing the tension in the air. Jack feels her tremble beneath his hand again, and he can tell her strength is fading fast. Time is running out. They each take hold of a rope, positioning themselves on either side of Daisy, and begin to pull, muscles straining against the relentless grip of the mud. Daisy lets out a low, anxious whinny, struggling to move forward as they pull. But again the mud resists, holding her down, and Jack feels a pang of frustration as they're forced to stop and regroup. Tom looks at him, brow furrowed. This isn't going to be easy, and they both know it. With Tom by his side, Jack takes a deep breath and wraps his hands around the rope once more, his knuckles white with the strain. They count together, voices low but determined, and they pull in unison, feeling the rope tighten and dig into their hands. Daisy lifts her head, ears twitching, sensing the renewed effort. For a moment it seems to be working. Her front legs shift, and she inches forward, the mud loosening its grip just enough to give them hope. But as they pull harder, Daisy suddenly freezes, her body tensing up as if an invisible weight is pressing down on her. She jerks her head back, nostrils flaring, her eyes filled with a strange new fear. Jack feels his heart skip a beat. Something isn't right. He watches her closely, noticing how her gaze keeps darting downward, almost as if she's aware of something they can't see. Tom glances at Jack, his face mirroring Jack's confusion. They pause, catching their breath, both men puzzled by Daisy's behavior. She's no longer just frightened or tired. She seems alarmed, almost paralyzed by an unseen threat. Jack reaches down, placing a reassuring hand on her neck, but she barely reacts, her eyes fixed downward, locked onto whatever lies beneath the surface. Curious and a bit unsettled, Jack crouches down and begins to sift through the mud around Daisy's legs, his fingers brushing against cold, slick muck. As he digs deeper, he encounters something solid and unyielding just below the surface. He pulls back for a moment, glancing at Tom, who now leans over, watching with wide, questioning eyes. Jack presses forward, feeling along the edge of the object embedded in the mud. It's hard, metallic, and strangely shaped, but nothing that belongs here. Not in the middle of a forest clearing. A faint chill prickles the back of his neck as he realizes that whatever this is, it's more than just mud holding Daisy down. The two men exchange a look of growing apprehension. Daisy shifts again, her hooves slipping as she tries to move. But the unknown object beneath her seems to keep her rooted in place. Jack's pulse quickens as he begins to wonder what lies hidden under the surface, concealed by layers of thick clinging mud. Jack kneels down, his hands sinking into the mud as he tries to get a better grip on whatever is hidden beneath Daisy. His fingers press against the cold, solid surface, and he shivers, not from the chill in the air, but from a deep sense of unease. He feels around the object, trying to gauge its shape, its texture, anything that might tell him what it is. The mud clings to his hands, thick and heavy, making it hard to distinguish details, but he knows this isn't a natural part of the forest floor. It's metal, jagged in places, as if twisted and broken long ago. Tom crouches beside him, leaning in to get a better look. His eyes narrow as Jack scrapes more mud away, exposing a bit more of the object's surface. It gleams faintly under the layer of muck, revealing hints of rusted metal and tangled shapes that don't make any sense. It's like they've stumbled upon the remains of something abandoned, left to be swallowed by the earth over time. The thought sends a chill down Jack's spine. Daisy stirs, her body tensing as if she too senses the strange presence beneath her. She lets out a nervous whinny, and Jack feels her muscles tremble under his hand. He knows they need to work quickly, but the weight of this discovery holds him in place, his mind racing with questions. How did this get here? And more importantly, what is it? As he digs further, Jack reveals more of the object's structure. A tangled mess of bars and wires, twisted together in a chaotic mass. It's embedded deep, as though the forest itself has tried to reclaim it. Jack looks up at Tom, who stares back with a look that says he's just as unsettled. This isn't what they expected to find. It feels wrong, almost eerie, as if they're disturbing something that was meant to be left alone. Daisy's anxious movements grow stronger, her hooves scraping against the metal beneath her, the sound sending a sharp pang of urgency through Jack. He's no longer just fighting the mud. He's fighting against something buried, something that seems intent on keeping Daisy trapped. The mystery thickens, the sense of dread growing as he realizes they're dealing with more than just a simple rescue. With a final determined breath, Jack digs deeper, his hands numb and caked in mud. He pulls back one last thick clump, revealing a clearer view of the strange, rusted object buried beneath Daisy. His eyes widen as he finally understands what he's looking at. A twisted, abandoned metal fence, mangled and half-buried, its sharp, rusted edges curling around Daisy's back legs like a snare. The old structure must have been hidden here for years, covered by soil and leaves, only to be exposed by the recent rain and softening ground. Tom lets out a low whistle, the gravity of the situation hitting them both. This isn't just mud trapping Daisy. She's tangled in an old, forgotten trap. The kind of obstacle no animal could free itself from. Jack feels a rush of anger mixed with relief. Anger that this dangerous remnant was left here, and relief that he finally knows what's holding her down. But with the relief comes a new wave of urgency. Daisy has already been here for hours, and the fence's sharp edges are digging into her legs each time she moves. Jack immediately calls for additional support on the radio, his voice firm but urgent. Specialized equipment is needed to cut through the rusty metal without hurting Daisy. Tom kneels beside her, his hand gently patting her neck, his voice soft and reassuring as he tries to keep her calm. Daisy, sensing their renewed determination, lets out a soft, exhausted sigh, her head dropping slightly as if surrendering her trust to them completely. In what feels like hours but is only a short time, more rescuers arrive with bolt cutters and protective gear. Jack and Tom guide them, every movement careful and precise, each cut and pull calculated to avoid any sudden jolts that could scare Daisy or cause further injury. Finally, with one last careful snip, the final piece of twisted metal falls away, freeing her completely. As the weight of the trap releases, Daisy stumbles forward, her legs shaky but finally free. Jack steadies her, a look of triumph and relief on his face as she takes a tentative step onto solid ground. She pauses, glances back at him with a gentle nudge of her nose, as if to say thank you. Jack and Tom exchange a look, the tension melting into smiles as they watch Daisy walk away, safe at last. It's a hard-won victory, and they both feel the deep satisfaction of knowing they didn't give up, even when the odds seem stacked against them. What are your thoughts on the twist we uncovered today? Comment your ideas below. Make sure to like and subscribe for a daily dose of drama and mystery. See you later with another twist.